A retired general who was a hero in the Indian Army. Retired General Officer Satish was in Israel recently. He's a counterterrorism expert and served as the Chief of Integrated Defense Staff to the Chairman of Chiefs of Staff Committee of the Indian Armed Forces. Your lapel pin is quite interesting. Can you tell me a little bit about its history?
This looks like maple. Everyone confuses it with maple. It is not maple. It is chinar leaf. The chinar leaf is somewhat like maple, but it's distinctly different. In the northern part of our country, in Kashmir, we have a lot of chinar trees. So this chinar leaf symbolizes that part of the country. Jammu and Kashmir, we have a situation nowadays with Pakistan and with terrorists, and we're dealing with terrorists as are you. So I was the corps commander there. I commanded that means all the army, all the paramilitary forces there in Kashmir Valley, and the emblem that the formation, the corps headquarters, the whole corps that has adopted there is a chinar leaf. So that's why I wear it here proudly.
What do you see as parallels between Israel's war with Hamas in Gaza, its war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the India-Pakistan situation?
Well, both India and Israel are dealing with difficult neighbors. Not only the neighbors, we are also dealing with non-state actors, both our countries. That said, the situation, the dynamics between India and Pakistan and Israel and their neighbors is also very different. The fact that we are dealing with difficult neighbors, but every situation is slightly different. There are two recognized countries, India and Pakistan. We just have an unresolved border for about 786 kilometers, which is called the line of control. And to add to it, over the last 4 decades, nearly 4 decades, Pakistan is also resorting to using proxy war tactics by sending terrorists across that particular line of control, which is porous. So that's one situation, and we're dealing with that. Whereas in Israel, your situation is a little more enmeshed. You also deal with non-state actors. You have an issue here. There's an issue with whether it's the West Bank or the Gaza Strip. There are recognized boundaries, but your dynamics with them is different than India with Pakistan. So there are similarities, but there are differences. But essentially, I think we look up a lot to the way Israeli defense forces have been carrying on this fight with states, not only these 2 states that we spoke of, with other states. Some of your enemies are far away from here, and you're dealing with them as well. Different proxies, whether it's Houthis, Hezbollah, different proxies that you're dealing with. So we look up to, there's a lot to learn from Israeli defense forces for our forces, and I'm sure there are some lessons that your forces can also take away from our forces, because we also have been in the same, ever since our independence, we've had some kind of insurgency or the other. We've also had, just like you had 3 wars, we've also had 4 wars with our neighbors, mostly with Pakistan, notably with Pakistan, but also one war in 1962, a border war with China. So currently a standoff is going on between India and China in the northern borders of our country. So we have our own dynamics.
There has been much cooperation between Israel and India. The Drishti-10 Starliner drone, for example. India has learned from Israel quite a bit regarding this type of warfare. How will Israeli-Indian military cooperation shift in the coming decade?
There has been a very active cooperation between the forces of 2 countries and also our defense production. So we have been acquiring weapons and equipment from Israel to fill up our critical voids wherever we have voids. Not only that, you mentioned a couple of examples. I remember when I was a colonel and we were on the line of control a couple of decades, 3 decades ago, and that is the time when we got our first handheld thermal imagers, which we use. So they came from here. So what I'm trying to say that we have had a very active cooperation, and I think the best measure of our support and trust in each other is the fact that there have been a couple of times when we needed something very critically, very urgently because of the operational situation. In fact, the conflict was ongoing and Israel came to our help. So, sometimes it takes, there are long gestation periods to actually get defense equipment and weapons and ammunition. But when we needed it, we got it in real quick time. So in the future, and I'm sure that India and Israel will only enhance their cooperation in the new emerging fields, especially in the world of cyber and space. Here, Israel has a lot of strengths. India also has some strengths in the software skills, but in the cyber world, um, uh, the Israeli capabilities are fairly unmatched, and we look forward to cooperating in that.
How do you teach young people who join the Indian military about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? How do you explain to them what Israel has had to deal with in the current war?
As a young officer, I have been brought up as a part of our professional military education. I have been brought up reading about the Six-Day War, the wars that Israel has fought with Egypt, Jordan, and other countries over here, and the Yom Kippur War. So the point I'm trying to make is not only I have been brought up on that, it used to be a part of our curriculum. During my younger days, when you are promoted from a captain to to the rank of a captain, and then from captain to a major, you have to pass a certain qualification exam. And in that exam, military history is a subject, and these are the subjects that we used to read. So all our youngsters who join, these are the campaigns that we have actually read about, and that is how there is a great deal of awareness, especially amongst the Indian Army officers, uh, about what has been the military history of Israel.
Narratives have changed. Do you feel that the India of today understands Israel differently from how it was understood by the India of yesteryear?
Yes, narratives have changed. Today, Israel is also battling the non-state actors much more than it is battling a neighboring country. And similarly, India is also now in a continuous combat mode with the non-state actors that Pakistan supports, nurtures, and actually exports out to in our country to spread violence. So times have changed, narratives have changed, but just a coincidence, maybe this is happening all over the world, that both our armies, that is India and Israeli army or armed forces, are involved in combating the same scourge. So there is again a lot of give and take. We do exercises together. We have joint exercises with Israeli Defense Forces. We have, of course, the most of our cooperation is in the field of in army and in the Air Force. So in these two forces, we are actively doing joint exercises. We have regular exchanges. Our delegations go and learn from each other. And of course, we've already spoken about the military hardware and the software that we are taking assistance from Israel for.
Have you been to Israel before?
Yes, I have, though it was many years ago, and I came here as a part of an official delegation. So it was a very good interaction to interact, I recall, with the National Defense College of Israel. Then we had an interaction with the National Security Council. One of the council members, we had an interaction with him, and several other places. I Must also say that I also visited other parts of Israel where it was very nice to learn about the Gaza border, because we have similarities in India-Pakistan border. Uh, because the way the terrain is, though our terrain is much higher mountainous terrain, but the similarities of a porous border and terrorists getting across using the sensors. We actually use sensors that we actually procured from Israel. We also use the same in our border fencing, etc. So that is the kind of experiences that enrich us. And I personally have, firsthand, I have seen how it works over here.
You are here at an unusual time, a 6-week period when there is an exchange of hostages held by Hamas for Palestinian prisoners, some of whom have blood on their hands, and not one for one, but 50 or more terrorists for one hostage. How would you have handled a situation like this?
I think there are no easy answers to the question you pose. It is always a very tough call to make because you want to save the lives of your citizens. When you say the ratio is 1:50 or more, what price can you really put at a human life? It's very tough. Tough decisions have to be made by political leaders. I mean, it's, sorry for using this phrase, but it's damned if you do and damned if you don't situation. We in India have faced a similar problem. We've had an aircraft was hijacked in 1999, taken to Kandahar in Afghanistan, and we were told to release a few dreaded terrorists languishing in our jails, in our prisons. One of them, Masood Azhar, eventually formed the Jaish-e-Mohammed, whose signature tactics is suicide squads, and they've started perfecting that technology, and they've harmed not only India, even Pakistan and other places. So what I'm trying to say is that it's a tough call that Israel has had to make. In the last 1 week, we saw there have been 2 prisoner exchanges. The beginning has been made. Some hostages were released, and more number of criminals or terrorists have had to be released. I gather if it continues, there'll be more. So such situations are messy. It will eventually may lead to some other developments where these criminals will go back and try to perpetrate more such violence. So these are tough times. Difficult, unusual situations call for unusual solutions.
It seems that the bad actors often have the upper hand, calling the shots. Can there be international cooperation with large countries such as India that have impact on the rules of negotiation?
I think the construct of such discussions where we cooperate with each other, we can learn from each other's experiences. But in my view, every situation is different. To formulate a rule, let's say academically, you asked me an academic question. If you formulate, if few bigger countries, US, India, Israel, and other countries who are affected by terrorism, we sit down and formulate some rules. How can we hold a signatory to that? Because the circumstances in which that country will be called upon to negotiate with a particular situation will be different. To my mind, I don't think it's going to be an easy thing. A better way would be to learn from each other's experiences, to form their own national policies, and then act on it.